It's here. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing the Monster Pro. Okay, that was stupid. Monster Pro. Two-hand this time. Mother with a box. Oh, listen to the sound of that bad boy. Look at this beast. Wow, there it is. Oh God. Can we get this to come down? Is that possible? The Gotway Monster. It's so huge. Look at this. Ugh. It's almost bigger than me when I'm sitting down. That's crazy. In this video, I'm going to try to answer the question, is this thing as awesome as we are all hoping? And is it worth the money? Man, I really hope so. I think it will be. Anyways, let's roll that intro.
Coming alive. Whoa. Now is the time. Whoa. Don't try to hide. 'Cause I'm gonna harm you like an animal.
Okay, right here behind me on this little track here is where I like to do my speed runs. I'm gonna switch to my 360 camera. Shout out to Insta360 for sending me some new cameras. There you go. Anyways, we're gonna put it out there. I'm gonna lighten my load so I can just really focus on riding, and I'm gonna see where I can hit the beeps on this thing. Let's do it. We at least breached 50, so that's a thing. I can't say I can go any faster. It's just too windy out here. It's too windy to hit past 50, but we did it here. We hit 50 on this wheel. We know it can at least touch the Sherman, that's for sure. You can probably go a little faster, but unfortunately, there's just too much wind. So we did it, guys. I crossed the 50-mile-an-hour line. However, I'm sure it could go more. I just couldn't push it. It's just too windy. Wintertime in the city, there's so much wind, like literally like a small gust, and I felt like I was gonna just eat it hardcore, getting knocked over on these side streets. But my initial thoughts are going fast on this thing. It feels more stable than, say, the EXN, which that's coming soon, but not as stable as the Sherman, and I don't suspect this will be able to hold that speed as long as the Sherman. How long can it hold a high speed? I'm not really sure. There are crazier guys than me who will definitely let us know. But for sure, this is a very fast wheel. But, you know, if you got a little bit of wind, I feel like the stability, forget the wind. The stability just feels a little precarious. But maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm not a monster aficionado. Let me know in the comments down below if I'm totally off base here. But doesn't feel as nice at top speed, not as stable as a Sherman. Maybe that's the tire, who knows? Maybe if you had the knoppy tire, that'd be better. Anyways, this has been my speed test for the Monster Pro. Man, as we can see, this wheel is fast, and in fact, it's probably touted to be the fastest wheel ever created. I think this could probably hit 55 depending on your weight. Please be careful if you buy this wheel and try this. I don't advise you try to just hit the tippy top, but what's important about top speed is it gives you a high ceiling so that when you want to ride in the 40s and you want to go super fast, you can do that knowing there's a bit more on top. Now, there's always going to be those guys who push it to the fastest. Respect to them, and, you know, praying for you. This, according to the lift test, is supposed to be the fastest wheel on the market, so there's that. But it only beats out the Sherman by a small margin. So knowing that it has extremely fast speed, let's see how the brakes do. All right, so a lot of people have been asking, what's the torque like? What's the acceleration like? What's the braking like? Calm down, take a deep breath. Here it is, here's how it goes. You're gonna be disappointed. But if you're used to a Monster, maybe it's about the same, but let me showcase. So as you just saw, it took way too long for me to stop there. I think it's a great cruiser if you live on the open road, if you live in the mountains or wherever. But if you're in a semi-city setting, I just can't see it being reasonable or safe. I mean, that scared me. That scared me how slow it took to stop. And if that's something that's worrisome for you, take note. This is a Monster, and I don't know if it's a good thing when it comes to braking. I'm not gonna lie and say everything's rainbows and candy, but yeah, this is what we're working with right now. So let's talk about how it rides. What does it feel like to ride the Monster Pro? I think this is the thing that a lot of people really want to know before they get their Monster. I mean, amongst other things, but I'm gonna try my best here to sort of carefully put this into a succinct way. So the ride feel of the Monster is, it feels like you have to work 25% too hard. So there is some low-end torque there, although if I am willing to wager, so we'll see, Marty, let me know, or I guess you'll let all of us know. So I think it's gonna fail Overheat Hill. I think it's got some torque, so I took some hills with it and I cut it out. And I feel like the hill was maybe 25 degrees. So I think it's gonna fail that test, but overall, the Monster Pro feels sluggish, but it is smooth. I think the hollow bore motor adds to the smoothness of the ride feel, which I think older Monster users will appreciate. And I do also think it feels stable below about 45 miles an hour. I feel like after I hit that above 40, I think it has a lot to do with the tire. So, you know, keep that in mind. You could most likely swap the tire for something closer to the old school Monster tire. But above 45, it felt a little too unstable for me. Again, I'm sort of comparing this to my everyday rider, which is the Sherman. And comparing the Sherman at speed above 45, the Sherman is rock solid. It's just like everything is tight in that thing. But this just gets a little whimsical, I'll say, at the top end. And of course you can carve with this thing, especially if you get like a good heel toe going and you got some power pads. This thing is totally carvable and it's manageable if you learn how to ride the Monster appropriately. But at the end of the day, it's about 25% too much work. It feels more like I'm trying to tame the wheel versus me just using the wheel and it enhancing my life. You rode the Monster Pro. What are your thoughts?
I don't know why they call it a monster. It's not the monster, for sure. It's got more torque, but they could tune it like way better. And it's like wrestling a bear. If the X is wrestling a rhino, this is wrestling a bear. I don't like wrestling bears. I want smooth. I want pedal goes down, it goes straight. Again, Sherman, Monster Pro, totally different animals. You want speed and acceleration on flats. Monster Pro is like the last wheel you want to buy. If you want hills, I'm not a hill guy. I can only imagine that this wheel will be good along with the X and all these higher power motors with high torque. But NYC, we're all flat. We want speed, and we want pickup and acceleration, 0 to 30. You know, this wheel is like the antithesis of that. The wheel is for people who, I guess I never understood the hugging thing, but if you love to hug your wheel and you want to like drape off of the wheel, like it's like you're riding Shamu, like, and just be almost near face plant, this is your wheel, because it's not gonna, it's, you know, it's super stiff. It's not gonna drop you. But I don't ride like that. That's too dangerous.
So in the Monster Pro, we have the pretty typical amenities. Usually when I say amenities, I just mean the extras beyond just the performance of the wheel. So right up here is your charge port area. So as you can see, we've got dual charge ports, which is super nice. And we now have a USB plug back. There's so many wheels that I've been trying lately to have no USB. It's kind of been pissing me off. Obviously right here you have your voltage readout. So I'm at 99.4 right now. Ready to do some speed runs. You got your little button here for the power, and then you have the lift sensor, which, let's be honest, the lift sensor, it works, but I wish you could just push and let go. You can't. You gotta hold it. But who wants to do 100 pounds of carrying with a lift sensor? I mean, this is crazy, right? You've got a trolley handle. Look at that trolley. I mean, look, it looks and feels as flimsy as you'd think. It's just a silly little... I don't have a problem with it, other than if you were to lay it too far down like this or the other direction, I think you might drop it in a store, and that could be detrimental. But, I mean, as far as a monster now having a trolley, it does the job. It's okay. As you can see, I have Clark pads on here, so I wouldn't recommend the Gotway stock pads. Those are much better. Shout out to Clark. It's got RS pedals on here. I think those work well, but if you're looking for a little more comfort, you might want to switch to Nikola pedals. And then, of course, we have speakers back here. Look at these speakers. Unfortunately, you know, sound coming through a camera then onto YouTube won't translate well, but I can assure you it's awful. The speakers on this thing are not as loud as all the other Gotways out there, and because it's recessed in the back, so it's not just that it's behind you, it's recessed inside this like cavern right here in the back that's got this like red cover over it. It's like talking through a cup, and that's basically how I would describe it. It's talking through a cup. Your music or whatever you're trying to play through it sounds like it's coming out through a cup. Not exactly the best thing. And the final big thing here, which is obviously the fancy lighting, which you've probably seen all over this video so far. I think it looks really nice. A much needed upgrade to the typical nonsense. It gives it a little refined look. And then you have this dual headlight, which it's okay. I mean, I don't feel like it's any better than anything else on the market. It functions pretty well. I mean, there's not much to say about it. Showing it at night really wouldn't prove too much. If it was something of note, I would tell you, but it's not brighter than anything else that I've seen.
So I'm not a regular monster rider. I have put probably about 300 miles on various monsters in the past, whether that's between a V1, V2, and V3. So I have ridden all the ones in the past, but I'm sort of like the perfect person to review this because I'm not in love with a monster. It's not my everyday wheel. I feel like I can get you a really good unbiased opinion on this. So with that said, after living with this wheel for as long as I've had it, here are my final thoughts. If you're a giant monster fan, you'll love this wheel. It'll take some getting used to, but I think you'll find yourself falling right into the groove of it and you'll enjoy the wheel. If you have deep pockets and you want a steady, long distance cruiser made for sort of the open road and seated riding, you'll also like this wheel. But this does come with the cost of maneuverability. The added weight and just the firmware makeup and everything that's sort of gone into this specific wheel does make it a bit less maneuverable than previous generations, and obviously less maneuverable than something a bit smaller like a Sherman or an MSP or an RS or anything like that. But if you are on a smaller wheel, whether that's 14, 16, 18, 20, or even 22, I don't think you'll like this. The reason is, for all of the reasons that you might get a Monster, or in this case, the Monster Pro, those being, it's got a giant tire, so it's gonna eat bumps very well. It's good at just cruising. It's got a lot of range, long distance riding, high speed, comfortability. For all of those reasons, there is another wheel that does it much better. And that's the Veteran Sherman. So unfortunately, if the Veteran Sherman had not existed, this wheel would be the sort of bittersweet king of the big cruiser scenario. But actually, fortunately, the Sherman exists. So honestly, I would have a really hard time recommending this wheel to anybody who isn't already a huge monster fan and wants all of the things you want out of a monster, but with none of the sacrifice. Well, the battery is slightly smaller on a Sherman, I guess. Overall, I kind of think Gotway missed the mark. This doesn't feel like you're riding an electric unicycle anymore. It feels like you're pushing a piece of farm equipment up a hill. I mean, that's just sort of the general, like, you're trying to tame a bear kind of scenario. I think Chris Yim said it really well. So go back, rewind, listen to what he had to say. I think he kind of nailed it. I think the ride feel is just too sluggish. It's not giving you that acceleration power that you really want. I mean, for something that weighs as much as this does, the acceleration could have been tuned better. I feel like it just does it, right? So they tuned it in a way that, like, okay, it brings you. But I would have loved it if the acceleration curve worked in such a way that it felt like, whoa, this thing really goes. Like, that would have been amazing. That would have been killer. But it didn't do that. To be honest, I don't really know what they could have done to make it better. Is it an awful wheel? No. But it doesn't wow me. It doesn't surprise me. It doesn't make me excited about it. It's just kind of, you know, flatlined. And for something that costs as much as it does, I really find this hard to recommend to basically anyone. Like I said, if you've got deep pockets and you're cool with that kind of experience, have at it. And a lot of you will be, and that's totally fine. But for me, this is just my unbiased perspective, looking at it through the lens of somebody that rides a ton of wheels and I ride all the time. You know, this is just sort of how I feel that this wheel turned out. Now, it is possible that they could see this video and tune the firmware a little bit better, and maybe it takes off. Maybe we hear about some new videos in a couple of weeks, and that would be amazing, and I can't wait to try that wheel. But for now, it's just kind of flatlined. So if you found this review helpful, go ahead and hit that like button down below. If you're mad that I told you it's not all it was cracked up to be, still hit the like button, I guess. Again, I'm just trying to give you guys an unpopular opinion, I guess, but just a real, raw, honest opinion about this. So if you enjoyed this video, hit the like button down below. If you enjoy my content overall, please consider subscribing and put the notification bell on, because that'll let you know when I put new content out. Also, I'm on Patreon, so if you want to support me there, that would be really great. A lot of the views these days aren't what they used to be on YouTube, so Patreon is a big help as well. But the best thing you can do is share this video around the internet on your own personal social media platforms. So thank you again for watching, and keep riding. Never stop. Blah.